everyone. I'm Teju, studying in third year BSc Horticulture at College of Horticulture, Hidiyuru. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to the third day of this webinar series on career development and learning opportunities in international institutes organized by College of Horticulture, Hidiyuru. It is truly an excellent opportunity on learning under the guidance of such experts. In this way, I feel proud to introduce our honorable guest, Dr. Raghavendra Gunaya sir, Assistant Professor, Department of Biotechnology and Crop Improvement, University of Horticulture Sciences, Bagalkot. He has completed his BSc Agriculture from University of Agricultural Sciences, Bangalore, and MSc Agriculture from same university in subject Plant Biotechnology. He has completed his PhD from McGill University, Montreal, Quebec, Canada. He worked as a plant biotechnologist at Spriha Biosciences Private Limited, Hyderabad. He also worked as research scientist at Advanta Limited, Hyderabad. Currently, he is working as assistant professor at University of Horticulture Sciences, Bagalkot. He has also received many of the awards. He has received Graduate Research Excellence Award in Plant Science during 2013 from McGill University, Canada. He was also awarded as Younger Achiever during 2018. He has also received Best Oral Presentation from Southeast Asian Vegetable Symposium, Malaysia. He has also got many of the fellowships. Some of them are Graduate Assistantship, Natural Sciences, Engineering and Research Council, Canada, Provost Fellowship from McGill University, Canada. Apart from these, he has also given his contribution to many of the research papers, articles, and publications. It's an honor to have you today, sir. A warm and cherished welcome to you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the nice introduction. I hope I am audible and my slides are visible.
Yes, sir.
So first of all, I would like to thank the organizers, especially Sridhar and Ravish, for inviting me to share my experience as well as share some tips on getting admission to the international universities. At the same time, I think I'm last but one speaker. Many speakers might have already spoken about like how to get into the international universities. Still, my presentations, I mean, some of the points may overlap with them. I request all the participants to bear with me. But definitely the novelty what I'm bringing you today is specifically I'm addressing how to get admissions into Canadian universities. What are the best universities? What are the procedures? What are the fellowships available? So with this, it's a afternoon. Many of you might be feeling sleepy. So just before going ahead with my presentation, just I would like to ask a question. Who should choose our career? So definitely now most of you say that your answer will be it's us. But if the same question was asked a few years back, a couple of years back, definitely most of you would have said it's our parents. It's our parents' responsibility to choose our career. Yes, that's true. It's because, so it's the parents who start building our career from the base. Okay, starting from kindergarten. So they start scratching their head which school our students get admitted. I think recently there was a search in the Google saying that, so which school is better where I am expecting my baby 2 years later. So that is the situation now they started. So apart from getting a best school, they also worry about arranging the money for donations, and the kid is getting admitted, but the interview is for the parents. So by the time they get their kids admitted to the kindergarten, they lose their partial heads because of the tension. Then immediately after 2 years, they have to get them into the high school. Again, they have to scratch their head for which is the best school, and they have to worry about the scorecard of the student. Almost nowadays there are weekly tests, monthly tests, annual exams. So instead of kid getting tension, their parents are getting tension. So they start worrying maybe from the first standard whether their kid or pupil will get admissions to a MBBS degree or engineering degree. So by this time, so 50% of his hairs are lost because of scratching their head. Then comes the big tension. So after completion of their high school, that is 10th standard, whether my kid has to go to arts, science, commerce, diploma, mostly they prefer for the science nowadays. And even if it is science again, so the colleges may not be a good. If not, they have to go for the expensive tuitions. So now they have lost their 80% of their hair. Finally, once they complete their PUC, that is your 12th standard, they have to look for which university, whether to go for the medical or engineering, what we need to do in the medical, which course has to be selected. So by the time they get their kid admitted to the universities, their complete hairs are gone. Okay. So now, so let's so now this is the situation you have arrived until here. So let us not pressurize more about our parents. Instead, let us start our own worrying about what we need to do after the graduation. So by all these days, since last 3 days, you might have learned like what are the opportunities available. So I'm not going in detail, but what I am presenting is how to choose your career. So maybe some of the resource persons might have already told, but in my point of view, there are 10 questions to be asked by yourself to choose a specific career. So those questions are, what are my interests? So am I good in collecting insects? Am I good in looking at the flowering habit of the plant? Am I good in what is inside, whether it is a gene or DNA? So like the gene or a DNA, so you need to know our interest. Then what are the skills you have learned during your undergraduation or your since your high school days? What are the skills you have learned? What are your talents and strengths? What is your personality, whether you are a leader or a follower? So nothing wrong in being a follower, but you need to choose such a jobs which suits your personality. What are my values? Am I only worried about earning money or still I have some ethical values? So what education or training do I need, suppose if I want to accomplish such a job? Or first of all, and then, are there such jobs already available so that I can readily join? Or should I start my own such job ventures where I can use my I can meet my interest and the skills? So finally, but not the least, how much money do I want to make it? Money is the last one, but it is the self satisfaction, including where do you live and how you earn. So, depending on that, you need to plan your career. So, planning mainly involves, as I told, interests, your goals, what education you already have, and what additional education you need to have, what are the skills you already possess, or if I need to learn more skills to get the job what I needed, and salary and the lifestyle. So let us see one by one. So what are the interests? So what you need to do is make list of 10 activities or maybe 5 top activities based on your hobbies, your interest in listening to certain lectures, specifically in your coursework. List them 10 and check if you can convert them into your careers by evaluating them. So, can you transform whatever the interest you have into a specific profession? If you really want to transform into a profession, what are the challenges you may come across? And do you need to have any skills to develop? So, with that, you need to think about what is your career goal, why you need to have a job, or why you need to have some higher education. So you ask some questions whether it helps you to focus on what you want to do for living, whether it can act as a guide to choose your path. Is that particular field you are really interested, or is that specific job you really wanted, or you are just joining that job for the sake of getting some salaries, and whether it can meet your lifestyle. So depending on that, you start searching for the jobs whatever you have. Then, so think about your education. Suppose if say you now you are all undergraduates in horticulture. Can you become a doctor now? I mean, medical doctor? Definitely not. So first you think what you have already accomplished. Then what you need to think about. Suppose if I want to become, say I'll take the example of, say if you want to become a plant doctor, mainly diagnosing the pathogens and the pests. If that is the case, do I need to go for a MSc specialization in plant pathology, or just an internship will do? So that, so with the use of, with the process of, or with the help of agri clinics, you can become a plant doctor. Or do you want to become a manager of a company? If you want to have additional management courses like agribusiness management or MBA, then you need to think about them. Mostly, if your interest is on research, definitely you need a PhD. So after shortlisting what exactly you need to do it, then you need to think where to study. So definitely my advice is avoid inbreeding. That means do not complete your undergraduation, post graduation, and also PhD from the same institute. So which you will be missing some new opportunities or the new challenges what you are supposed to face. So you will be like, in Kannada they say Kupa Manduka, means a frog in a well. So you'll not be knowing about the outside world. So possibly try to go out of your state, at least if not countries. Okay. Then, so if you want to achieve your dream job, say if you want to become a CEO of a company, so what else you want to do it? What are the skills? Do you have to learn more about personality development? Then you evaluate the courses, become a volunteer in some organization so that you learn that managerial skill. And whenever you have leisure, you try to get experience of those things. Then determine the relationship among your interest, education, and skill. And if any additional training is there, then you have to get the training. After all, you get your skills assessed with some of your seniors or maybe your professors, so that they can tell you which is the suitable job for you, and if your skills and education are suitable for the job what you are aspiring. So I told you salary is the not end point what the education is determined, but it is a necessity. So what kind of salary you are going to get it? Explore this from the information available in the company websites, or maybe some of your seniors are working, or your professors may be having some information about it. Get from them and check whatever the offer they are giving, whether it meets your qualifications and skills. Many times, at least in India, most of our graduates are not paid well enough according to their qualifications and skills. So I was listening to Dr. Nitya Gowda. She was telling that many times when we came back from the international universities, they say that you are overqualified because they cannot pay the salary which we are interested. Then, whether your job, do you need to relocate into some rural areas or urban areas? Do you need to move away from your family? So, all those things have to be taken, then finally evaluated with your self satisfaction with the salary. So, it is not only the salary, you should be self satisfied with respect to your health as well as your family. Finally, but not the least, values and vision. So you check about the history of the employer. Is it doing some good things? Okay. Or say maybe a company is paying a salary of maybe 3 to 5 lakhs, but they are dealing with some drugs, narcotic drugs. Do you want to join as a marketing manager? Definitely you should know, you should say no. Check out the working environment with respect to what are the infrastructure they are having. if they are providing any vehicle facilities to pick you from the home and to the office and back, whether your colleagues are really friendly, check if you have some seniors, and also check the behavior of your boss. That is most important, because boss determines your mood as well as the behavior. Okay, so then look for the facilities for working time, home, travel, leaves, whether you get enough leaves to attend to your family needs. All those things has to be taken care before choosing a job. So then start preparing your job hunt. So by first, the best persons, resource persons for to know the jobs vacancies are your seniors, followed by your teachers. Ask them about their job satisfaction, then evaluate whether it meets your interest, education, skills. Then, do you need any higher education? If yes, so what kind of education, where you need to do that, when you have to do it, and how that can help to boost your job potential. So, like this, you can have your potential. So, by addressing all these 9 points, then only you can have your dream job. Okay. So, with this, you can choose your employment either at a public sector or private sector, or maybe go for self employment, or later you can go for higher education if you want to go. Don't go for any jobs right now. So okay, so these are the ones which I think you already know it. I'll not go on with this one. Well, so my main topic is on how you can study in abroad areas. So I call it as stitching wings to yourself so that you can fly anywhere. Well, so there were days where the in Western countries mothers used to tell their kids, saying that you eat. Otherwise, when the kids doesn't eat properly, they used to say that eat, or else Indian kids will snatch your food. Now, India is self-sufficient in food production. Definitely, we don't say that one. Instead, now the Western mothers are saying, study well, otherwise Indian students will snatch your jobs. Maybe not only Indian, so Indians are also there, but mostly the Indians and the Chinese are going to snatch the jobs. It is not just a comic, but it is the truth as it can be seen with the statistics. Okay, the China is the topmost country where students are studying as well as getting their jobs abroad, followed by India. So you can see the numbers where there is a high number. So these numbers are reducing the chances for the native Americans or the Canadians to lose their jobs. So just to give another statistics about Indian immigrants in USA. So this is little old, but now the numbers have increased, but the trend continues the same. So every year the number of immigrants to USA are increasing. It's not only with the USA, the top countries like Canada, Australia, Germany, France, so many countries are included where Indian immigrants are increasing every year. Just to look at the statistics, so 14 million Indian migrants are present worldwide. So this is the second largest group. Indians are the second largest group, immigrant group in the US. So more than 2 million Indian born immigrants are residing in the USA. So it's not only immigration, but also their kids are also born there. Then, so Indian citizens are the top recipients of temporary high-skilled H-1B visas. I hope you know about H-1B visas, or some the one who has studied in USA might have already explained about it. And India is also the second largest sending country of international students to the United States after the China. Then why these people are mad about going abroad, especially the USA, Australia, Canada, France, or whatever the countries? Why they are mad about it? It's because they are in search of a better career. So they know that if they move to USA or Canada, this, whether it is for the study or for the work, definitely they can get a better career. The second most important aspects to study overseas or to work overseas is the it is the best way to travel and see the world. So when you have reached there, you can go around into many visiting places and you can see it. And it is also an opportunity to learn new languages. Of course, many may not be interested, but it is also a big opportunity to learn new languages. You can experience the world culture. So it's not only Indians. When you go to USA, it's not only Indians and Americans there, but there are people from several countries, hundreds of countries, each one with a different culture background. And so this is my favorite. I always try to taste a new cuisine. It's not only tasting, but I also try to cook them. So I enjoyed the pizzas and burgers when I was in Canada. So I think this is one of the opportunity I would not have got if I had not gone there. It's not only that. So there, most of the universities in USA, Canada, or Germany, or Australia, they provide you an opportunity to earn while you learn. Apart from your fellowships, you can also earn while you learn by working on campus. I'll tell about what are the opportunities to work on campus in the coming slides. So these 6 factors have been mostly opined by the students who would like to study overseas. But so there was a survey conducted on Indian students why they need to study abroad. So it is the almost more than 3 lakh students are surveyed by Y Axis team, so which is a career path service provider team. So they say that the one of the major point to they consider to go abroad is they get more options to study. More options in the sense, I think this question was also asked to Dr. Nitya. So you have BSc horticulture. Can I study BSc MSc forestry? Yes, that is the wide opportunities available in the foreign universities. Unlike our Indian education system, where there is a hierarchical system. If I study BSc horticulture, then I need to do MSc horticulture. Then I have to do PhD in horticulture. No, that is not the case. So the best example I can quote here is, I think most of you recognize this person. So who is in news since last 2 years with the eruption of Corona. So he is Dr. Krishna Ella. So most of you may be knowing that he is our own graduate. I think I can with proud I can say that he is our senior alumni from University of Agricultural Sciences. So you might be wondering what Dr. Krishna being after studying agriculture, how did he get into the medical field? So that was the opportunity he got when he was studying his master's at University of Hawaii. He was specialized in the molecular biology, especially in the medical or the pharmaceutical biology. So when he shifted from its agriculture to pharmaceutical molecular biology, he continued study on the same aspects with University of Wisconsin. Then briefly he worked there itself on the medical field. Then in the 1996 he came back to India with his large experience and started his own company called as Bharat Biotech, so which is delivering the COVAX into the whole, not only India but all over the world. Okay, so this is up to then accessibility to admission. So you know that India has very limited, so the top universities are very limited in India, but the population is really high. So many students will be competing for the limited number of higher education opportunities. In such cases, the equivalent or maybe a better education system can be found elsewhere in the world, maybe in other countries. At the same time, many students do also interested to settle outside through the immigration process. They want to settle in USA or Canada. So that was also one of the reason. Then research opportunities are better in the Western countries compared to the Indian countries. Suppose if I do PhD here, so it's difficult to get a job in India, especially for the research opportunity. This is my own experience as well as experience of many of my fellow speakers, I guess. Okay, so that is one of the reason. So the second, But most of the students, when I think I deliver this lecture once in a while in our university. By listening to my lecture, many students come to me, say that they want to do masters or the PhD outside the country. But when I ask them to do some short assignments, they say that it is a sour grapes. I think most of you remember this story about the fox and the grapes. So the fox tries to jump to get the grapes on the vine, but it could not jump to the height where those grapes were there. So finally, it says to itself, it's sour, so I am not interested in eating those grapes. So that is the situation of most of our undergraduates. I'm saying most of our undergraduates. So if there are any exceptions to this, most of our undergraduates, they are very well settled in one of the best, many of the best universities in the world. So my only suggestion is to give a constant try. Then only you get these grapes. Definitely, they are not sour; they are really sweet. Then the question asked, many people come to me saying that, sir, whether I can do it. However, I studied my up to high school. I studied in Kannada medium. Can I do it? Or they say that, sir, I don't have fellowship. I mean, I don't. My fathers or parents are not rich enough to fund my education outside the country. Can I do it? So, like this, there will be several questions asked to me. Now, my simple answer is, I think, hope you can all recognize these two persons, Dr. Ravish and Dr. Sridhar, including me. Like this, there are many aspirants who have achieved who are like you before. So that's why I say, when we did it, definitely you can also do it. So I'm going to share my story when I did it. So you will definitely you will have get more confidence. You can also do it at the end of the presentation. So then what you need to do if you want to go for higher studies in the abroad. I have listed them five major points. Okay. So those are: first, discover. Then once you discover your opportunities, connect it to get those opportunities. Then prepare what kind of education is required. Then you start applying. Then you fly. So let us see one by one of these steps to get into higher education. So discover. So you need to choose the right program for you. I was explaining about choosing the right career also. So here also I am repeating that whether just internships are enough or you need to do a master's or PhD. So many times, for example, the best quote I can the best career I can quote you is, do you know that there is a post for coffee tasting and wine tasting? So these two are the jobs which are very well paid, highly paid. I think a fresher will get around 2 to 3 lakhs per month. So that is the payment that you are going to get it. It does not require a higher education like PhD or masters, but you should be trained to taste the wine as well as coffee. So in such cases, just internships are sufficient for you to get into such jobs. So otherwise, if you cannot go as a master students because of some other reasons, you can also go as on short visits with the student exchange programs. Many of our universities have already implemented such student exchange programs. I think in Karnataka, University of Agriculture Sciences, Dharwad is very ahead. Every year it is sending many students and also getting the students from abroad university to have their own experience. And now University of Agriculture, Horticulture Sciences, Bagalkot, as well as University of Agriculture and Horticulture Sciences, Shumagga, will also have such opportunities with the help of a upcoming project called as Institutional Development Project funded by ICAR. Then you can also visit. This will be a short visits of 3 months to 6 months. So you need not live longer. And mostly such student exchange programs are funded. You need not worry about your funding or the fellowships. Still, you can experience your abroad education experience in such visits. Then the next opportunities are the masters. If you are aspiring for masters, there are two options here. One is just like your undergraduation, you are going to complete the coursework, or else you can do only research, which is commonly called as thesis work. So when it comes to masters fellowships, limited fellowships compared to the PhD fellowships available. It's because whenever I go for PhD, I'm conducting some research. That research is belongs to the professor under whom I will be working. In such cases, so I'll be doing work for my professor. In turn, my professor is paying me as a research associateship. But that does not happen in the masters if you are not chosen the thesis work. So that's one point you need to remember. If you are going for masters, and if you don't have fellowship opportunities, preferably you choose the thesis work rather than the coursework. Then if it comes to PhD, there are ample number of fellowships available. Definitely end of the presentation, you can, many people might be having a doubt, sir, you say ample number of fellowships, but I'm not getting none. I'm no. It's because you are not searching properly. Okay. So that we can talk later. Then find your area of research first. So what area you need to do? This comes with your experience, as I told in the choosing career. So what are your interests? What are your skills? Based on that, you find your research area. Then explore different programs, universities, or the department which are offering such research, offering such degree programs. Then finally, find a supervisor, especially I'm talking about the PhD or the MSc thesis research, who can efficiently guide you. You can go through the supervisors or the professor's profile, what kind of publications he has made, what are the patents he is already having, what kind of students he is hiring. That's also one of the important thing you need to remember. As Dr. Nitya was mentioning, most of the professors in the abroad universities are really student friendly, but that does not mean that there are bad professors. Yes, I have seen couple of bad professors also who are racial in nature. They doesn't want any Asian students to enter into Canada or USA. I've seen some of those professors. So you need to know about the professors also. Find a supervisor. So that ends your first step in getting closer to the studying abroad education. Next, connect. How do you connect? You get connected to the supervisor by writing an email and also sending your curriculum vitae CV. Okay, so and also statement of purpose, covering letter. So these three things are highly dynamic. So many people send the same CV to different professors. Okay, that should not happen. Maybe the content of your CV is same, but you need to alter little bit. Say for example, so if you are interested in plant pathologist and you are writing to your professor who is interested in biological management of pests and diseases. So what you need to highlight in your CV when you are writing to a professor who is interested in biological management of pests and diseases, you should highlight what kind of courses you have learned during your undergraduation which are relevant to the biological management. Maybe environmental safe production of biofertilizers or the bioprotection, some of the microbiology courses you can highlight there. At the same time, if the professor is working on developing a resistant cultivar to pests and diseases, so you are still is a pathologist, but is developing plants or the varieties which are resistant to pests and diseases, then you, in your CV, you should highlight about your genetics courses or maybe biotechnology courses. Like that, depending on the area of interest, you should change, modify your CVs as well as the statement of purpose. So what is a statement of purpose? Maybe previous speakers have spoken, but I would like to highlight one sentence here. SOP is nothing but your connecting your academics, research interest and skills. So these are your points with the position what is available. Whether your qualification, your BSc agree is required for this position, you need to highlight even SOP. Whether your research interest and skills are suitable for this position, you need to highlight. Okay, so that's one thing you need to remember. Then the covering letter or the first email is the most important one. If you make any mistakes in your first email, whether it may be a spelling mistake or a grammatical mistake, that means you will be losing your chance to further conversation with your professors. Uh, it's like Pratama Chumba Danta Bhagnam, sorry, whatever it is, Pratama Chumbanam Danta Bhagnam. It will be like that. So you just highlight what is your excellence, what is your interest, and how they are relevant to the position which is available with the professors. Then later, at the first email itself, don't ask whether he has any funding opportunities. So the professors will be looking what is your research interest. So they should not feel that this guy is just looking for the fellowship opportunities. Once he feels and reply to you saying that your interest and excellence are matching to his position, then in the subsequent emails, you can inquire about the fellowship opportunities or the funding opportunities or the admission procedures which are available. So once the professor accepts it, then you familiarize with your admission requirements about your education, or if you need to take some additional qualifications like English proficiency exams like TOEFL and IELTS, then you start thinking of your funding opportunities. If your parents are rich enough, you can go on own funding. If not, you need to look for some external agencies, both in India as well as abroad. Then you need to search the university website whether university is providing any merit fellowships, or if your professor himself is having a research project where he can pay you as a research associateship, or you get a partial funding and you have an opportunities to work on or off campus so that you can meet your expenses when you are studying there. Okay, so mostly, so when you are applying, most of the universities, unlike in India, there is only one time admission per year, but in most of the foreign universities, there will be 3 admissions, one in fall, where admissions takes place in September, but the application for fall admission starts well in advance in March itself. Similarly, for the winter, the admission starts from September. For the summer, admission starts from December. You know your deadlines and apply well in before. Yes, somebody was also asking this question, like how my grades are compared. Yes, so most of the foreign universities follow this grade system. Say, for example, my grades are between, or my CGPAs are between 8.5 to 10, then you will get a grade of 4, that is the highest. If you have such grades, if somebody has more than 8.5, you have very high chance of getting university merit fellowship as well as the external fellowship as well as project association project associateships. Then if your grades are from 8 to 8.4, then it is considered as a grade of 3.7. So your chances of fellowships reduces. So you will not be eligible to get the merit scholarships, but some other minor or partial funding will be available. Then if your grades are from 7.5 to 7.9, so it is graded in foreign universities as 3.3. So very minimal fellowship opportunities. You should look for your own funding either from the Indian organizations or some non-governmental organizations. Then finally, if you have a score of 7 to 7.5, then it is considered as 3. Okay, so definitely you will not have any merit fellowships if you have a grades between 7 to 7.5, but you need not worry about that. If you have good publications, or if you have some excelled in some other activities, and if you can support them, so your professor may be interested to provide some project funding. So it does not, it is not the end, but still you have the opportunities. Then you start preparing online, start your filling online application, pay the application fees, prepare your transcripts. I don't know whether your previous speakers have spoken about these transcripts. Your transcripts are nothing but your what you call photocopies of your marks cards as well as your degree certificate, but so these are to be sent by the registrar of the university in a closed envelope. It's not the one you need to send it. So it should be sent by the registrar to the address what you mentioned. So this is most important for the students who are aspiring. You should follow up with your registrar office to send them in advance before the deadline of the applications. At the same time, you should get your letter of recommendations. Again, letter of recommendations are mostly online nowadays. So your professors to whom you are given as referees should send the letter of recommendations in time so that they reach before the closure of your admission procedures. And you should have a passport. Many people, so I think it happened with one of my friend, I can say. So he got everything ready. Unfortunately, he forgot that his passport had less than 6 months of expiry. So then he has to go quickly get his passport renewed within the short time. So when you are applying, your passport should have minimum of 6 months expiry date. Okay. So optionally, you can send your personal statement of purposes. Sometimes your supervisor may ask you to write a sample project to test your project writing capabilities. They may ask you to send the English proficiency exams or the other test scores like GRE and GMAT. So you should make sure that they are reached in time. Then submit your application, confirm your application is submitted. So if there are any issues, directly you can send an email to the program coordinator. Then check if you need to submit any additional documents if they are not properly reached. Keep in touch with your referees so that they submit the reference letters in time, and make sure that your TOEFL and GRE scores reach the institute in time. Then you are set to fly. So get your admission letter, get your visa done, pack your baggage, and then fly. But the big question students ask me is, sir, whatever you have said is fine, but how do I choose where to study? Which country I need to go? Which university I need to go? Which professor I need to choose? Yes, here are some points to answer your queries. So again, there was a student survey on how to choose an university or the professors. So the opinion of most of the students is wherever they are appearing or the looking for the universities, they should be they should have the ability to or attain the ability to achieve their career goals, whatever they have dreamt of. Then they should have a good personality development along with their academic career. They should experience a new culture or the lifestyle. They should have an access to higher quality of teaching. Even there are bad universities, as the previous speaker was speaking, there are some private bad universities. So check with them. You should have access to higher quality of teaching. You should feel that you are making an adventure in the country, and you should be able to make new friends or widen your professional network and learn new language. So like this, you might be having certain points in your mind. If you want to go out for your higher education, what are those points? You should answer all those things. So with these points, so there was the survey conducted by education.com. Most of the students have opined that Canada is the top country which students would like to study based on these parameters. Okay, so they can, so again, when they were surveying, there were separate scores for each of these points. Based on summation of all these points, Canada is regarded as the top one country in the year 2022 for higher educations, followed by Australia, Germany, Switzerland, United States, like this. These are the top 10 countries you have to look for. Well, then how to choose your institute? Again, while choosing the institute, which is your desired program? Whether you want to continue in horticulture, or it's okay if you want to widen your program so that you can study any biological science or the life science. Choose whether you want to go with coursework or the thesis work. As I told, my recommendation for masters is always thesis work. And degree nomenclature is one of the major problem with the Indian universities. I think you students might be well aware about MSc horticulture in genetics and plant breeding, MSc horticulture in plant biotechnology. So these degrees are awarded by our own universities. Many other universities are not ready to accept these for several academic regions. So why I am stressing you here is, so whatever the degree nomenclature you get from most of the abroad universities will definitely not like an MSc Agri or MSc RT. So just to quote my example, I am a graduate BSc Agriculture, MSc Agriculture in Plant Biotechnology, but my PhD is in plant science. Although I have worked on biotechnology, but I am not getting a degree as biotechnology. Okay. So similarly, say for example, if any one of you are interested to come back and get a position of assistant professor or some other high profile jobs in India, this degree nomenclature also matters. So when they are screening your applications, if it is not according, say for example, suppose for the recruitment of assistant professor in plant biotechnology, if they had given PhD in plant biotechnology, I would have been ineligible for this post. So you should check with the degree nomenclature also. If you are particularly planning to come back after your studies, please make sure that you get the degrees what you would like to, like the same similar kind of nomenclatures like MSc Agri or MSc Horti or PhD in horticulture or PhD in agriculture. Then, so where would you like to study? Which country? So you should look for what are the whether the country you are looking is safer for the foreign students, whether it has the facilities like transport to move from your home to the college. Then what is the living cost? Whether you can manage with the funds or the fellowships available with your living cost. How is the weather? Whether it is too hard or you can still manage. Especially you should check connect with your health status and also the weather so that you can still manage with such weather. For example, in Canada, where I lived, Montreal, so in winter temperature used to go up to minus 30 degrees Celsius. The people with asthma used to struggle a lot during the winter months. In such cases, you should not choose such countries. And whether how about the immigration procedures? Are there is there whether the procedures are very simple or very complex? So better to choose the simple procedure, the country with simple procedures rather than the complex procedures. Then check your university, whether you are studying in a good university based on the global rankings. So these global rankings are given based on the academic and educational performance of the teaching environment available in the universities based on the survey from the students who have studied there. Then look for the cost, the both the fees as well as the living cost. Then look whether you have a funding opportunities in the same country or the same universities. Then after looking at all these factors, take opinion from the students who have already studied there about the university department as well as the professor. So now it is very easy through the social networking. It is easy to get connected with the students who have studied. So get connected with them, take their opinion, and nowadays with the corona problems, we check whether you can partially complete online courses here itself. As one of my student who is admitted to the McGill University in food science, he is doing his coursework from here itself through by attending online courses. Check whether such facilities are also available. So these three or four sites maybe I'll share with Ravish later, so Ravish can share with the group. Will get you some knowledge about the opportunities available abroad with respect to, especially for agriculture exchange programs, top global universities. Then you can select based on your interest by going into this website. The specialty of this website is, so once you start searching based on your interest, it itself gives some suggestions about the courses available and the universities available for matching your interest. Then finally, I come to my actual topic, why we need to study in Canada, or why you should aspire for Canada more specifically. Well, so as I told, as per the student survey, it was the Canada which was aspired by most of the students. It was the top one country aspired by the global students, not only Indians, but it was by global students. Similarly, if you look at the students who are studying abroad, so Canada is the second largest country after the United States. United States, it's mainly because large number of universities, large number of fellowships available, so then followed by the Canada. So why we need to study in Canada? Okay, it's because of the standard of education, what it is available in Canadian institutes. So Canada is globally recognized as one of the exceptional, it is having exceptional standard higher education system, and it has 7 universities in top 200 list, with this order: University of Toronto, McGill University where I studied. And if you are interested in specifically in agriculture, the ones which are highlighted here: University of British Columbia, University of Alberta, then University of Guelph. So these three universities are having lot of opportunities for agri and RT students. And good thing is, even they are offering MSc horticulture as well as MSc agriculture in these universities. So my suggestion with these Canadian universities are: University of Guelph, with lot of tuition fees are very less in University of Guelph compared to these universities. At the same time, there are funding opportunities exclusively for Indians. So you should explore these universities because of their good education system. Then coming to the cost of education, so Canada is offering the equivalent education standards as USA and UK as well as Australia. But if you look at the tuition fees, so it has the lowest after the Germany. So the tuition fees are around $14,000 to $20,000, but still lesser than the US, UK, and Australia, and including the living cost. Living costs are also comparatively very low compared to these countries. So these 5 countries are regarded as the top 5 countries for higher education, and among them, Canada is having the lowest tuition cost as well as the lowest cost. The third most, and maybe with my experience, most of the Canada, I visited at least 4 universities, and all of these universities are having very beautiful campuses. So this is what I'm showing is the where I studied. So my McGill University, especially McDonald campus, was on the riverbed of St. Lawrence River. So this was our usual walking path. Every day evening walking path was this one. So in this is in case of summer. Winter it used to be full of ice. Even we used to play on the snow, what we have seen here. So it has a beautiful campuses, and campus lifestyle is really adorable in most of the Canadian universities. So here I am giving you an example of McGill University where I studied. If you have a dream of becoming something, you had an hobby but you didn't get an opportunity to pursue this hobby in India, definitely this is a place you can get it. You say whatever you want, everything is there. Okay, whether it is games, whether it is nature, whether it is cultural activities, you have everything. So which is supported through the campus student societies. Example, in our campus, McDonald Campus Student Society, it is an independent body, no government interfere with this one. It is solely run by the students who are actual graduates, and definitely there is no politics unlike in many of the Indian institutes. So you have different clubs. This is one McGill McDonald club of music. Even once in a while we used to have Bollywood nights where our own Indian students used to sing or we used to dance. We also have our own Indian associations. For example, McGill Mac Indian Students Associations, as well as at the main campus we have Indian Student Service Center, ISS is also there. So like this, you have a lot of lifestyle in the campuses. And if you think of beauty of the campus, Canada is the best one. There are many places to visit. So these are some of the list what I have listed here. But this is not the end. Lot more are available. and the topmost I like are the Niagara Falls. You can never miss without visiting a Niagara Falls. Then a Whistler Resort, a perfect. This is for skiing, especially in the winters. Then the Quebec City, you should visit this Quebec City in the fall season, where you will be seeing colorful Quebec City. Then I could not go last time, but definitely when I go next time, I'll be visiting this Banff National Park. With the limited time, definitely I could go to visit many places like Gaspé Peninsula. So this is Gaspé Peninsula is almost a 2,000-kilometer road on the river bed of St. Lawrence. We traveled across all the 2,000 kilometers. Then this is a vintage car show which happens every year in Montreal itself. This is the Mint Museum in Ottawa. You can see the gold bars. Definitely you cannot take them, but you can just see them. Then you should not miss is the Winter Carnival, which happens in the December and January months in Quebec City. Well, so the next point you should consider why you need to study in Canada is it is a multilingual society. Although English and French are the official languages, but you can see lot many languages are spoken in Canada, and you can see here even our Indian languages: Hindi, Urdu, Gujarati, Punjabi, Tamil. Unfortunately, maybe Kannadigas are very less. So Kannada or maybe Kannada, they say Kannadigaru Vishala Hrudayavantaru. Whenever they look at other people, they do not want to talk in Kannada, rather than they want to speak in other languages. Maybe that is maybe one reason Kannada is not coming in this list. But you feel like you are in India. You will never feel like you are in Canada. Okay. So apart from that, suppose if you want to learn a French language, the government of Canada is sometimes giving a free education to learn the French through the process of find free new incomer services, through a process called as new incomer services. So you can with these facilities you can look for a job once you get your work permit, or you can get your language assessment or register for the language at free of cost. Then when it comes to care and safety, Canada is the one of the safest place. It has been ranked sixth peaceful country across the globe by the Global Peace Index 2020. So that is the best place and also the safer place. The government of Canada is also helping the immigrants to assimilate by providing them the orientation with respect to the programs, skill training, social services, and the pathways to get the citizenship or the permanent residency. It's not only the government, even most of the universities are very helpful, especially for the safety of immigrant students or the foreign students through their program called as University Buddy Program. So University Buddy Program is nothing but, suppose if you get an admission, but you need, so once you got your admission, you may be having a lot of doubts about the visa application or get a residential place once you live there to get the hostel or the other residential places. In such cases, you can request in the website about a buddy. So a buddy is nothing but maybe your own country person or maybe other country person. So they will be in touch with you until you get into the campus. The first day of your campus, they will be in touch with you. They help in solving your problems of visa applications, getting an accommodation once you reach there. Even sometimes they help you. They'll come to airport to pick you up and leave it to your room. And also once you get in there, they will also help in a lot other admission or the official procedures. And most of the universities have a 24/7 university helplines for the safety of all the students. It need not be only Indian students. So many times, even I have personally experienced, sometimes it used to get late in the night. We used to work in the lab at the 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. In such cases, these securities used to come to us, take us in their vehicles to our homes and drop us. So that is the facilities available at most of the Canadian universities. Last but not the least, and most of your aspiring are the funding opportunities. Yes, Canada is definitely a best country, but how do I get the funding? Well, so I have listed some of the fellowship opportunities which are available. So they are not restricted to just agriculture or horticulture, but they are wide over engineering, medical, and all those things. But even our own graduates are available. The first one is the Shastri Indo-Canadian Institute. Their office is also there in India. So mainly they partially fund the bachelor's, master's as well as MPhil degrees. Their preference is for the student exchange programs rather than the full study in the foreign university or the Canadian universities. But sometimes they pay partial fee waiver because they will match the grants. So Canadian students will be having the low fees compared to the international students. So whatever the difference is there, so to the merits, few meritorious students, they pay our fees on behalf of us to match the Canadian students' fees. The next one is the Canadian Commonwealth Scholarship Program. So this is again a partial funding program. They mainly pay for your transportation and living expenses, but not the student fees. You have to meet the fees, semester fees through some other sources. Ontario Graduate Scholarship Program is one of the recently started scholarship program. They pay around $15,000 per year, which is renewable every year up to 3 years. But you need to choose the universities only in the province, that is the state, Ontario. Then you also have the fellowship opportunities from National Research Council of Canada. So mainly, this is a research funding agency similar to our Department of Science and Technology or the Department of Biotechnology. Mainly, they pay the research associateships if you get admitted to the PhD in the selected professors who already have the NRC grants. If you aspire to study in Quebec, where I studied, so you have a lot of opportunities, like they pay $25,000 for the entire duration of 3 years, and I mean $25 per year. And if your PhD get extended, they will pay for another 12 months also. Apart from that, they also pay postdoctoral fellowship of $35,000 per year for 1 year only. Apart from that, if you are interested in short visits like less than 4 months, then they pay around $3,000. But again, you should choose the university only in the Quebec province. Quebec province, yes, universities are very good. Funding opportunities are also little more compared to other states, but only problem is the weather. Especially in the Quebec city, the temperature goes up to -40 in the winters. Very harsh weathers. Then again, Ontario Trillium Fellowship for the students who are studying in Ontario province. The best fellowship what I have seen, and one of our Indian student got it when I was studying in McGill, was the 1 year Canada Graduate Fellowship. Here, this 1 year Canada Graduate Fellowship, the selection is very tough. So first they choose top students from the department, and they will be nominated to the university level. Then among the university, there are around 32,000 students in McGill University. Among them, they select the top 10 students. Only those will get this fellowship. So one of our Indian students who was studying in the bioresearch engineering from Tamil Nadu, he got this fellowship. So they pay around 50,000 Canadian dollar per year. This is equivalent to the fresh professor, the early career professor who has started his career as assistant professor in Canada. Another fellowships are the Trudeau scholarships, which they pay $40,000. So again, it is not restricted to any specific province. You are eligible, but only thing is you should be meritorious with a score of more than 8.5. A Banting fellowship is specifically for the postdoctoral fellowship, which is around $70,000 per year for 2 years. Again, the screening process is little very cumbersome as well as also tough. But definitely, if any such PhD students with good publications and MSc grades are there, you can apply for this one. Apart from that, each university has their own merit scholarship. These are all the general fellowships awarded by the Government of Canada or their subsidiary agencies. Apart from this, university also has the merit scholarships. Then research associates from the professors as well as the part-time work opportunities. Part-time work opportunities may be like a greenhouse assistant. Maybe in the weekends you need to go and water the greenhouse plants. You get paid. You can work as a library assistant. You can sit in the counter, you can issue the books, you can be in the gym as a service person. So like that, there are several. In the summer, when the agricultural operations happen, if you know driving, you can be a tractor operator or many other machine operators. You can go for harvesting of the fruits and vegetables. So you get paid, very well paid. Almost it is $25,000 per hour. 25 per hour. You can make good amount of money. So when I was doing my PhD, I worked as a again, one more thing is, if your professor is teach, or there will be a lot of UG courses for teaching practicals. Usually, professors will not teach them. Instead, they will allow the graduate students to teach the undergraduate students. So you will be paid as a teaching assistant. Again, it is around $35 per hour. So I worked as both teaching assistant as well as the greenhouse assistant. Almost I earned around $5,000 from these two jobs as a part-time worker. So this is just an highlight of fellowships available at the McGill universities. So you can visit this website, www.mcgill.ca, post GPS, that is graduate or postgraduate students and funding opportunities there. So you get lot of them. So Shuli covered one of the one, I got it. Banting I already told. FQRNT specifically for the Canadian Quebec students. Like this, you get lot of fellowships even from the McGill universities also. So apart from the foreign university funding, your government of India has also floated several fellowships to study overseas. I think one of the most prominent for agriculture graduates is the Netaji Subhash ICR International Fellowship. It was earlier called as ICR International Fellow. I am glad to say that I was the first one to receive this fellowship in 2010. Apart from that, you should be keep looking at Department of Higher Education, Government of India, that is HRD website. So they announce lot of Commonwealth fellowships. Maybe just before coming to your presentation, I searched, but there are no fellowships at present, mainly because of the COVID impact. But definitely it announces. So before getting to Canada, I had got the Mexico government fellowship, Commonwealth fellowship to study in Mexico. But again, because of some other reasons, because of the safety, I did not go to Mexico. Apart from that, you have from the Department of Science and Technology, you have SERB, Science and Engineering Research Board Overseas Doctoral Fellowships. Even agriculture graduates are eligible for this one. Several postdoctoral visiting scientist fellowships are available from DST. Even DBT has also a lot of fellowships. Erasmus Mundus Joint Master Degree Programs, Fulbright Nehru Master Fellowships, Fulbright Kalam Climate Fellowships, like that. Several fellowships are available. So these are some of the ones. Of course, I did not check all of them whether they're truly there or not, but still you can go visit the websites and take the advantage. One more reason why most of our Indian students aspire to study in Canada is the immigration process is very, very easy. So once you complete your master's or PhD, you are eligible for getting permanent residency, which is equivalent to green card in USA. So automatically you are eligible, and the chances of getting a permanent residency after studying there is 99%. So maybe less than 1%, maybe because of their health or maybe because of their criminal background, their applications are rejected. So initially we start applying temporary visa as a student permit. So once we complete our student, graduation, we can apply for the work permit. Then once we get the work permit, meanwhile you can get the permanent residency. For the student permits, so usually the documents required are proof of acceptance from the universities, that is the admission letter. Then proof of identity, that is valid Indian passport with at least 6 months validity. The proof for financial support, mostly it is your funding. If funding is not available, then you may have to provide a bank statement with the amount sufficient to study at least 1 year. So nowadays, even you have partial funding, they have made this as the compulsory, as my student who is going this year has said. Sometimes they may ask for the supervisor, or the university may ask for the letter of explanation like why you need to study in specific universities. If you are applying for Quebec universities, then you need an additional document called as CAQ, Certificate D except Quebec, CAQ. Then if you're minor, definitely you're not minors, a custodian certificate is there, and medical certificate. You should not have any major diseases, so medical certificate is also required. So VFS Global is an agency which is an exclusive service provider for Canadian immigration. So if you want any suggestions, you can just visit VFS Global, which is there in Bangalore. They will guide you through the documents required, as well as they will even help you to get the visa. Well, the one more point I was specifically mentioning was earn while you learn. There are a lot of opportunities in the foreign universities, including the Canada. You can have on-campus employment. If you have a valid study permit, you can readily work on campus. Like I said, libraries, gyms, greenhouse, teaching assistants, and like that. But only thing is, you should be a registered full-time student. Once you finish your 1 year or your masters, you are eligible to work off campus. So again, off campus, you can work in the restaurants or you can work in the provision stores. So like that, you will have off campus employment also. So to get off campus employment, you need to get a document called as social insurance number. So that is necessary for working off campus. So for working on campus, there is no restriction on number of hours, but only thing is you should coordinate with your education also. If you can meet your studies and work as many as hours possible, so usually 5 to 10 hours in a week is more because you need to study also. Off campus, usually it is maximum 20 hours per week. During the full year, during the break, like whenever you have the breaks, you can work full time. Then once you finish your graduation, whether it is masters or the PhD, you are going to get the open work permit. Means you can work anywhere in Canada or any subject. Unlike your H1B visa, you should have specific work. Only if you have job, then only they will issue the visa. This is not like that. So you are going to have a work permit. You can work anywhere in the Canada on any aspects. So if your education is from 8 months to 3 years, if you are
Excuse me.
less than,
Excuse me, sir. Sorry to
yeah,
interrupt you. So
okay,
we are running short
yeah,
of
I'm
time.
done, I'm done.
Yeah.
Okay, so if it is, if your studies are more than 8 months to 2 years, you will be issued a work permit of 8 months to 2 years. If it is more than 2 years, you will get a work permit for 3 years. You can apply only once. Well, so this I think I already covered. I think I told you in the beginning that when I did it, you can also do it. Just I'm share my experience briefly. I did my primary education from my own native, so where I studied in Kannada medium only up to 8th standard, and I learned my alphabets, English alphabets only in the 5th standard. So for many students who complain that language is a problem, definitely it is not the one. Then I got into my JNV, which is my temple, actual temple, where I got lot of learnings as well as this one. Then after graduation, I could not continue my masters because of some other personal problems. So I had to work for 3 years. There was a 3 years gap. I worked in an NGO as a non-technical. Then later, after working for 3 years, then later I joined MSc in Agri Biotechnology. Then after MSc, again I worked as 1 year as an SRF, then 1 year in a seed company, again 2 years gap year. Still I had a goal that I should do my PhD outside India. Then finally I achieved, even with lot of gaps. So I'll share my experience if you require later. So these are some of the fellowships I got. Initially I started, I got the admission, but there was no confirmed fellowship. My professor said that you'll be paid only for 1 year, but if he gets another project, then he will pay for another 2 years. But he said that you can work on campus. With that assurance, just with 1 year fellowship, I could get in. Then later, it was fortunate that I got an ICR fellowship at the rate of $20,200 per year for 3 years. And I was the topper Indian student for the year 2010. Hence, I also got a Schulich fellowship, which is awarded for meritorious Indian students in the McGill. Then I also got Provost fellowship, which is awarded for the meritorious students of Department of Plant Science. Then to attend a conference in USA, I got a great travel award, one of the best conference, biggest conference, Plant and Animal Genomics Conference. I also got Research Excellence Awards in Agriculture and Environmental Science, Research Excellence in Plant Science, then NSERC Research Grants. So this is how. So I started with nothing, but I could get a lot of fellowships. So what I tell you is, you just go ahead. Definitely, you will get things. So this is our lab. So it was initially started by one of my senior, Kumar Swami. I followed him. Later, the chain is still growing. So Dr. Kushalappa, one of the highly dedicated professors. So lot of Indian students in his lab, as well as this is our plant science department. So merci beaucoup. This is one of the language I learned when I was in Canada. Merci beaucoup in French means thank you. So if you want any doubts, please contact me on both the email IDs, raghavendragunai@gmail.com as well as raghavendragunai@uhsbagalkot.edu.in. Thank you. Thank you. If you have any questions, you can ask me. You say, I think I need to leave the space for another speaker.
Yeah, thank you so much for a very nice presentation, sir. I think it was excellently covered for each and everything which is need to be taken care while they want to, explore the other universities and all. We always chance to raise any questions. So with respect to opportunities at Canada. Any question? Yes, there is a question for you, sir. So in Canada,
yeah, I can read
you can see,
we need to have funding or scholarship only from one source. Oh, that's a good question. Definitely no. For example, I am the best example. I was getting multiple fellowships, one from Indian government and multiple fellowships from Canada also. There are no such restrictions.
Okay, sir. The presentation was really good. This question was asked by one of my students in the College of Forestry, Ponampet.
Hello, sir.
She seems intent to go to Canada
okay,
for higher education. Thank you for the information.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, I have a question. Yes, sir. There's one more question for you in the chat box, Jagdish.
Okay. That's a good question. So the question is, what's your opinion on career break after BSc or MSc? So my suggestion is, if you don't have any problems with your family or your economic problems, please do continue continuously, because in future, so you will be left behind. I can quote you my example itself. Say I joined this university in 2015. So even because of lot of career breaks, so what I got is, now I am junior to almost many of my juniors, which are 5 years juniors to me. I am junior to them in a professional career. That's one thing. And you feel like whenever you take a break, continue the education, personally, this is my personal opinion, it differs from person to person. You feel like you are never settled unless I got an permanent job in a seed company. So till then I was breaking, study, employment, study, employment. I was feeling like when I need to settle. Okay, so this is the worst, demerits of it. Coming to the merits, if you don't have proper funding support, some of my students are doing now. Same thing, he got admission to McGill, but unfortunately he could not get the fellowships because of his scores. So what he's doing is he's working for some time. So that gives you more energy also. Sometimes studying continuously may be monotonous, you feel tired. In such cases, definitely you can opt for this one. Absolutely depends on your own perceptive rather than getting the experience of someone else. Both advantages and disadvantages are there.
Okay. So I have another question for you.
Yes, sir.
So as like a case, so I have seen come across with the experiences of actually engineering graduates, those who want to study abroad. So prior they start studying, getting connected with abroad universities, they always try to get an exposure or working experience in some of the industries.
Yes.
And even I heard the same thing in respect of in case of biotechnology students as well.
Yes.
And once they go there and complete their masters in biotechnology or PhD in biotechnology, if they want to settle at that country, so the company that going to offer a job for them, so they always ask that, do you have any experience of working before? So is that situation is similar for agriculture graduates as well, or it's only for engineering graduate?
Well, if you are looking for job opportunities, it's yes. If it is for studies, mostly for during your study, I mean for higher education, whether masters or PhD, they will not ask your work experience. Instead, they may ask your research experience, whether it may be through the work or maybe through on-campus research, especially through information like publications. So I told you the ones which are having a grades around less than 8, the chances of getting fellowships will be less, but you can augment that with your publications in good impact factor journals. So that will add, instead of that experience, they may not count for the experience, but definitely your publications do count for this one. But if it is job, yes, always experience is preferred.
So one more question in the chat box.
The question is how to strengthen our CV other than having good CGPA while applying for MSc. This is one of the good question because one of the student from College of Horticulture, Sirsi, Nishchita, she had completed her UG. Her scores were little moderate, not really high, not low. When she initially started applying, she was rejected by many universities. So what she did was, when she was in the internship, whatever the ELP learning, she had worked with an economist. Okay, and with that experience, she published 2 articles. So one on the local newspaper and one in a good impact factor journal. When she later applied with that, so that strengthened her CV. Okay, and she got admission in University of Halifax. So that's the way. So you can maybe write an article based on your RAWE experience, preferably in English, or your ELP experience, or whenever your time is Saturday, Sunday, if your professors help you, you can go to their labs, do some partial research work and get publications. That's the way. And if you have taken leadership activities like CR, or your RAWE leader, such things has to be mentioned in your CVs, and also your referees has to write on those aspects. That also strengthens your CV.
Okay. Thank you, dear Dr. Raghavendra, for being part of our webinar. So, dear participants, if you have any queries, any questions related to Dr. Raghavendra's presentation, feel free to contact him through mail or through his personal contact. He has already shared his mail ID. So feel free to contact him. Now I hand over the session to Miss Teju for giving vote of thanks for our speaker. Teju?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please.
It's my privilege to give vote of thanks to all those who have made this session successful. On behalf of our University of Agriculture and Horticultural Sciences Shivamogga and College of Horticulture Hiriyur, I would extend a hearty vote of thanks to Honorable guest Dr. Raghavendra Gunnaiah sir for enlightening us with the knowledge about the opportunities in Canada. And I also wish to express my gratitude to our Dean and all the professors for their encouragement and support. Last but not the least, I would like to thank all the participants for their active participation. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Ravisha and Sridhar for providing me this opportunity. Thank you, one and all.